Okay, so here in this question, we are asked to graph the solution set G of 3 bracket 2x plus 1 greater than minus bracket x minus 3, and x is an element of the real number line. Okay, and so doing this first part, well, we can see here I have 3 outside the bracket, so 3 times 2x, well, that's 6x. 3 times plus 1 is plus 3, which is greater than, well, minus by x is minus x, and minus by minus 3 is plus 3. And then just tidying things up, here I'm going to say plus x, so here I will also say plus x. Here I'm going to say minus 3, so here I'm going to say minus 3. And here we have, well, these minus 3 and plus 3 cancel, and the minus x and plus x. So 6x plus x is 7x, which is greater than plus 3 minus 3, well, that's 0 as well. Here dividing across by 7, and here dividing by 7 is going to give me x is greater than 0. So that's my solution set of G. Now to plot that on the real number line. So, well, I know first of all that x is greater than 0, that it's strictly greater than, so I'm going to have my circle there, and then because it's the real number line, I would be colouring in along in this direction to show that it's greater than. So that's part 1 solved, okay, and we'll just put that over there. And similarly then in part 2, we are told that x is an element of the real number line as well, and we are asked to solve this bracket here. So expanding it out, well, 3 by x is 3x. 3 by plus 2, well, that's going to be plus 6, is greater than or equal to 4 by x is 4x, and 4 by minus 1 is minus 4. And again, just tidying this up here, I'm going to have minus 4x. So here I'll have minus 4x. Here I'm going to say minus 6. So here I'll say minus 6. They cancel and they cancel. Here I'm left 3x minus 4x. Well, that's minus x is greater than or equal to minus 4 minus 6. Well, that is going to be minus 10. And again, I need to make that x positive. So changing the x into a positive will also change the minus 10 into a positive. And again, we remember, as always, anytime we divide across by minus, it reverses the direction of the inequality. And so we want to stick that on a number line. And so here's my number line. And this time when I get to 10, well, it's less than or equal to, so I would be shading in that circle, okay? And then again, as always, to mark in on the real number line, I put a heavy pen along there, okay? And I do it right until the end, so I still continue it there. Okay, now, okay, so in here we can see both answers. So now in part 3, well, we're asked to graph where these intersect, okay? So where do these two graphs overlap? So just taking a look here, well, on this one, the positive end goes on forever in this direction, whereas in this graph here, I can see its upper limit is at 10. So that's, and that it's a shaded in circle. So that would be my first bit that I am going to put in here. So here I'm going to put in my shaded in circle at 10. And the other thing that I can see and note here is at 0, this is the lower limit here, whereas this one goes on forever at the end. So I'm bound by this lower limit because 0 obviously it is higher than minus 10. So bound by that, and it's an open circle. So I do my open circle here. And then I shade in between the two. And so that gives me the solution set that represents G intersection H. Okay, and here in this question we're told the water for a tropical fish must be between 20 and 27 degrees inclusive. Again, that's an important word for us because that means our inequality will be greater or less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to at the lower end. Then we're told here that the water was heated by 9 degrees to reach the correct temperature. Okay, write an inequality that shows this information and let T represent the temperature of the water before it was heated. Okay, and so beginning that, well, what are my outer bands? In the first part, I'm told 20 degrees is the lower band. So I'm going to write my 20 degrees here. Up at the other end, I have 27 degrees, and I have both of them so that the temperature goes between those, and again that it is inclusive, so that's the less than and equal to, or the greater than and equal to sign. Okay, and so in the middle then is the temperature, but I'm also told that the temperature was added to, it was heated by 9 degrees, so the temperature increased plus 9. So that's my inequality for the first part, just based on exactly the information that I was given in the question. So it's just very important to read slowly, and then we write our inequality. Then the next thing we're asked was, what was the range of temperatures that the water could have been at before heating? Well, and again, I know from before, with questions like this, a compound inequality, all I do to solve it is I split it into two inequalities. So here's one part, and the other part then is over here. T plus 9 is less than or equal to 27. And solving then for T, well, here I'm going to subtract 9, so here I'll also subtract 9. They will cancel, and 20 minus 9 is 11, which is less than or equal to T. And over here I'm going to do the exact same. I'm going to say minus 9, and so here minus 9, and we cancel out this, and I get T is less than or equal to 18. And then just very quickly then, I put my two inequalities that I've split up back into one inequality. And so here in the center I'll have 11 is less than or equal to T, which is less than or equal to 18. So that represents the temperature of the water before it was heated. And they're just putting a box around my answer to part 1. Okay, so here we have another word problem. We're going to take a quick look at this. So a marketing company charges a fee, so that's 500 euros upfront before anything happens. The next thing, it goes up 220 per day thereafter. We've been given between 5,000 and 9,500 to launch this campaign, and we're asked to write down an inequality that represents this, and X is to represent the length of the marketing campaign in days. Okay, so our first part then, well, what were the boundaries that I could have in my campaign? Well, I could have 5,000 was the minimum I could spend, and the maximum I could spend is 9,500. Now, and so here I assume I can include both of those. And also, well, I know my standing order, my upfront fee in the question I was told was 500 euros. So that bit's going to go in here in the center. And then what happens? Every day it goes up by 220 euros. And I'm told to let X represent the number of days. So here I'm going to just write in plus 220 times X. And that's my inequality for part 1. Okay, and so in part 2 then, I am asked pretty much to solve this inequality. I'm asked, what's the least and most number of days for which the firm can hire the marketing company? Okay, so again, I'm going to split it into two different inequalities. So here I have 5,000 is less than or equal to 500 plus 220x. And on the other side then, I have the other part of it. So I have 500 plus 220x is less than or equal to 9,500. Okay, and so again, just solving both of those, well, here I need to take away 500 on the right hand side, so I'm also going to do the same here. And equally over here, I will take away 500 on this left hand side, so I'll also take away 500 here. and that cancels there, and this also cancels here. And so on this side I'm left with 5,000 is less than or equal to 220x. And so getting x on its own here, well, I'm going to divide by 220. So here I'll divide by 220, and again that cancels, and that leaves me with x being greater than or equal to 22.73. Okay, and then solving over here on the other side, well, I have 220x is less than or equal to 9,000, and so again dividing here by 220 in order to get x on its own means I'll also divide here by 220. This cancels, and that gives me x here is less than or equal to 40.91. And again then just putting both inequalities back together, but also it says number of days, so I'm going to round now to the nearest whole number, or the whole number that I suppose fits into the inequality. So the whole number that is greater than, the nearest whole number that's greater than 22.73, well, that's 23. Okay, and the nearest whole number that's less than or equal to 40.91, well, that's 40. So that's the number of days, the least and most number of days for which the marketing firm can hire, or for which the firm can hire the marketing company. So between 23 and 40 days. So here in this question, I'm told Zara sells handmade candles at her local market every Saturday. She noticed that she sells 8 candles less each week. On the 6th Saturday, she sells 24 candles. How many candles did she sell on the 1st Saturday? Well, I suppose our easiest thing to do here would be to draw a quick table and work backwards. Okay, and so here in my table then, well, the first thing I know is I'm at week 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and back to my first week. Now I know on the 6th week she sold 24 candles. The next thing I know is that each week before that she had sold 8 more, because it's reducing by 8 each week. So 24 plus 8, well, that's going to be 32. Plus 8 is 40, plus 8 is 48, plus 8 is 56, and plus another 8 is 64. Now, so that's one way to have done it, and that's with a table. Okay, and so that's our answer to part 1. Okay, now, however, in part 2, they say, if we were to do that with C equaling the number of candles sold each week, and let n equal the number of weeks after the first Saturday, write an equation. Well, I'm going to write then C for the candles sold. So C is equal to, well, what happens? We start off with 64 candles, and each week after that, she reduces, she sells 8 less, and we're told to let n equal the number of weeks after the first Saturday. So that's my answer to part 2, my simple equation that also represents that table. Okay, so it's exactly what we would have done in patterns last year in maths as well. Now, part 3 then says, Zara would be content to sell between 15 and 40 candles per week. So this is where my inequality comes into it here. And we're asked to write an inequality in n to represent this information. So for part 3 here, well, I have 15 is the minimum she wants to sell, and 40 she's happy to sell that much. Now we know that she started off with 64, and each week it's gone down. So we're going to see that's our information, and she wants to sell between those amounts. That's what she'd be happy. So that's our inequality to represent it. And then in part 4, we're asked to find out for how many Saturdays. So we want to solve for n because that's our weeks. Okay, and so we're just going to do exactly as we've done before to split the inequality into two parts, solve for n, and then put it back together at the end. So pause the video now for yourselves and try and solve it here. Okay, and so splitting it into two inequalities, then I will have my two sides here. So solving this first one, well, I know I want to get rid of the 64 on this side, so I'm also going to get rid of it on that side. They cancel, and 15 take away 64 is minus 49, which is less than or equal to minus 8n. And again here, I know that I have to, well, 1, divide across by minus 8 and divide here by minus 8. So that's going to cancel here, and that's going to leave me with n. And minus by minus is a plus. 49 divided by 8. Divided by 8 is minus by minus plus. So 49 divided by 8 is 6 and 1/8, 6.125. And again, dividing across by a minus change the direction of my inequality. Similarly, so over here, I'm going to have on this side, or with this inequality, I'm going to have to first subtract 64 from here. So minus 64, minus 64. So that leaves me with minus 8n is less than or equal to, and sorry, they have cancelled, 40 take away 64, well, that's minus 24. And again, dividing here by minus 8 and here by minus 8, that's going to leave me with, these have cancelled, and I have n. Minus by minus is a plus 3, and again, dividing across by a minus changes the direction of my inequality. Now, just before I put the two inequalities back together, I can see here, very important that I note the direction of the inequality, or even I can see the numbers. So here 3 is less than or equal to n, when n is less than or equal to 6.125. So my n is going in the middle. So what's the lower end there? 3 is at the lower end. And again, the smaller part of the inequality is closer to the 3, or the open part at the n. And again, similar, the smaller part is at the end here, which is 6.125. And so for how many Saturdays was Zara content with her sales? Well, for between 3 to 6 Saturdays. Okay, so that's our answer there. Okay, and again, we could just put a red box around our final inequality. Okay, so that's our answer there. So open up Schoology and you'll see what questions from that activity that you have to do.